Surprising activity on the supply side this past week, as well as a sneak peek at some of our internal data here at John Green Realtor that gives you a strong pulse on current market activity. So that's what we're covering in this week's report. As always, thanks for taking a few minutes to join us for our weekly look at real-time market insights into our local housing market. My name is Scott Parker. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at John Green Realtor, and I'll be taking you through this week's findings. So let's jump in. First up, new listings for the 4 counties we track. So after 2 months of basically trailing last year by exactly 10%, so just a tad bit off, we saw a sizable reduction week over week at a time of year where new listings are on the rise. So last week was kind of an interesting a data point. If we go over and look at contract activity, we look at demand side, you can see there was a slight tick up from last week. So listings were down, but contract activity was up. So a little bit of two converging patterns between the supply and demand side and the data this past week. Let's look at showing activity. So this graph is a really great forward-looking indicator because these are active buyers that are looking at conducting showings, and those showings are going to turn into contracts in the upcoming weeks and months. And you can see we had a pretty huge dip. And at first blush, it's a little bit of a warning signal, but when you peel back the layers, here's what we find. You had a big dip in new listings, which was likely going to mean a dip in showings. But what we wouldn't have anticipated is that big of a drop. So I can tell anecdotally, we did have some huge traffic numbers at some open homes our agents conducted this weekend. So maybe we have a blip or even potentially a technical issue in the data, but this is one we're going to watch like a hawk over the next 7 days to see if there's some kind of trend here. As far as off-market activity, this represents those active listings that came off the market without a successful sale. So you have this slight uptick here. Now we're kind of consistent with 2021 activity, but notice how last year the numbers kept plummeting, and that slight difference in off-market activity makes a pretty big difference in market balance, as you'll see here in a second. This is under contract versus new listings. So this chart and the next one give us a feel for balance in the market. You had this drop in new listings, you had a slight uptick in contracts, and so this number naturally moves higher away from a balanced market and a little bit more to an out of balance market. And then we're adding in the off-market activity here, so you can see the total number of listings on the market relative to the total number that left. And with that slight little uptick in off-market activity, you can see this one bouncing up as well. Okay, so let's take a look at some of our internal data here at John Green Realtor. We track some of the metrics that tell us how quickly the market is moving. So last week, 2 out of 3 homes that sold at or over list price. And so by any measure of a market, that's incredibly hot. It's cooler than it was when we were tracking last spring, which is what we would have anticipated coming into this year with higher interest rates and some economic uncertainty kind of looming. But if you're a buyer right now, it's likely you will be in a multiple offer situation. At least there's a 2 out of 3 chance you're going to be in a multiple offer situation per our data last week. So that's pretty unique because you can see the delta below there on the range of contract price to original list price on our sales from last week. That delta from high to low is much bigger than any point we saw last year. And that's just a really good friendly reminder that we can make blanket statements about a market, but there are markets within markets and they vary widely. And price and condition of homes available also play a big role in a home's ability to command top dollar. So something to keep in mind that no 2 neighborhoods or 2 homes are created equally, and we're seeing a lot of that in our current marketplace. So to recap, listings dipped noticeably this past week, and so did showings, although we're watching showing data closely this next week to check that data. Multiple offer activity is picking up per our data. Pricing is holding up as a result, even as interest rates continue to rise. So it's a very interesting time, and that's why we do these updates weekly so our clients can stay informed and make prudent decisions. So thanks as always for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.